Fantastic. As you go ahead and type in the chat what your bias goes towards, I'll just do a re-intro for those who are watching this long after the session. So this session is courtesy of Craftwise Academy. I am part of Craftwise Academy as one of the facilitators, and I'll be moderating this session. And today we're focusing on people first, performance always. How do you get great managers to achieve both? Okay, so obviously we're not going for one or the other, but I'm just highlighting how we typically come into leadership with a bias. If you're like Angela, you'll say people shape performance, so I lean more towards people. There's some of us who are like straight through the door. You're like, no, 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 get the job done, and then let's think about the people. Okay, but the thing is, it's neither this nor the other. It doesn't have to be either or. It can actually be both and more. So when we get it right, when we're able to take care of the balance for both, then we see rewards and they're incredible. We see engaged teams, we see healthy culture, we see strong results. But if you're like me and you've also seen it go wrong, then the impact can be really painful. So it hits morale, operations, and yes, it also hits the bottom line. And that's very important to us. So how do we hold both well? Well, how do we use, in fact, if you think about it, how do we use people to drive performance? But how do we also use perhaps performance to take care of our people? Sounds interesting? I'm glad because that's why we are here. And I want to say a big, big welcome to every one of you. My name is Sam Kimera. Again, I'll be facilitating and moderating this conversation. Okay. So speaking of leadership, now I want you to put yourself in the shoes of a manager. Okay. So I'm curious now. Imagine you are dropped on an island with your team. So here I'm asking you to check your toolkit, your leadership toolkits. What one key item do you have in your survival kit, and how would you use it for this hypothetical situation? The team that you're working with right now, so the core team, so whether it's a team of 5, a team of 10, a team of whatever that looks like. Imagine they just take all of them and we drop them on an island. Right? What's one key item that you have where, like, I'm confident you have this and it would help us in this situation? What would you say? I can hear people thinking. Yeah, go ahead. What do you have in your toolkit? Or would you prefer if I give you options? Okay, Angela says repeat. So imagine if I think I'm going to give you options. I'm going to give you 3 options. Imagine if we take your team, the team that you're working with, and we drop all of you on an island, right? Let me take the liberty of giving you 3 options. So you get to choose one. Would you choose a gun, a compass, or a medical kit? Which of these 3 would you choose? Which of these 3 would you choose? And I'm going to ask why. Gun, a compass, or medical kit? Again, you have 3 options. You get to choose one. If we dropped you and your whole team right now on an island, which of these 3 items would you choose? A gun, a medical kit, or a compass? Timothy says compass. Robert says compass. Interesting. No one wants a gun. Like, hey, guys, I know we're talking leadership, but, there's animals out here that we need to fight. No? No one? Medical situations? No? Esther says they need to figure what direction to follow for safety. Well, I mean, we could give you a gun so you're safe, no? All of you here are super leaders. You're like, no, 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 no. No dissuasion whatsoever. We're going with the compass. I really want at least one person has to say gun. No? Aha, Gibbs. Gibbs says gun. Gun, medical kit, then compass. Now, Gibbs, you've changed the rules. Mutinda wants to find the way out of the situation. Angela says we will employ the physical ways. We shall figure out how to defend ourselves. Just give us the compass for direction. Okay, fair enough, fair enough. And I think it is no shock that most of you, if not all of you here, would choose the compass because you are strong leaders in your different capacities. Okay, fair enough. I was hoping someone would say gun because it depends on the island that we put you on, right? Okay, but that's fine. Well, welcome. That was just a quick icebreaker. Let's get into our session today. I'll just do a quick introduction about who we are as Craftwise, in case you're curious, and then we'll get into just for our agenda, we'll get into a conversation with someone who has worked with Craftwise very recently. Actually, it was just last month, and they got such great results. And we said, hey, would you want to share them with our community of people who are interested in building their communities as well, of people and talent? And she said yes. So we'll be having that. We'll be having that shortly. Any right option? No, there's no right or wrong options. It comes down to some people may find a better use for a gun than some people may find for a compass. So it's one of those. But yes, if you're saying gun, yes, I'm agreeing with you. I'll go with your option. Okay. Well, let me jump into it. So if you're looking at Craftwise Academy and you wanted to summarize, like, okay, so who is Craftwise Academy? What do they do? Think of the opportunities we have to train our talent. And they said if you don't, sometimes the challenge is we keep training our people, we keep training our teams, our individuals, we keep training and so on. But what happens if they leave and then someone said, well, I think you should be more worried if you don't train them and they stay, right? So Craftwise Academy is a revolution in experiential learning. We don't just think webinar, we want to engineer learning experiences, leadership experiences, especially for the growing manager. Okay, so that mid-level manager is getting lots more responsibilities, is not at entry, not quite at entry, not quite at C-suite or whatever that may look like, but is right in the middle there on the journey. We don't want to just talk at them and recycle theory. We want to simulate decision moments because that leadership, it requires a lot of decisions and you have to think through them. And what they need is not just training, they need is transformation. So it needs to be practical. It needs to be something that they can act on. And at Craftwise Academy, that's what we do. And you'll be seeing that even as we go through this program or this session for today. Our solution is breaking away from the traditional overcrowded training market. We want to focus on the real value that organizations are looking for, the real value that talent teams are looking for, HR, L&D, any organization really wants to get into something very practical. And the way we do that is we provide high-stakes simulation, strategic decision-making exercises, and especially cross-functional adventures. Because today's team, whether part of them are working remotely or they're just multicultural and either different spaces they're coming from, it's important to figure out how do we communicate together, how do we understand the people, how do we understand the work that needs to get done, and that's how you put those two together. So ultimately, we are creating an entirely new category of learning. We want to make it experiential, engaging, and transformational. You can have it that way, or you can have it dry and boring and tick box exercises that don't really go anywhere. You can have it meaningful or you can have it as dry. We choose to think, no. There's a lot that needs to go into the labor force that we work with, the people, so that they can move the performance forward, just like Angela mentioned. So today we're going to get into a little bit of how that works. Okay, but to get us into this conversation, I just want to invite Esther Mucheru. So we worked with Esther last month and a while before. She's the head of human resources at Spinners and Spinners Limited. And I promised to ask her a question. So we were talking about Spinners and Spinners, and she said at Spinners, they have people who have been there for 3 decades. Like, I think she said 34 years, and they're still enjoying doing the work there. And I thought to myself, I think that's incredible, especially in our era today where lots of people are just quick to switch and things like that. They're either not finding satisfaction or they're chasing something else. And I thought to ask her, even as you come on to unmute your mic, Esther, How is that even possible?
Good evening, everyone. I am happy and excited to be here. No need to introduce myself. Sam has done it justice. How is it possible to be in a place for 3 decades? Well, personally, I am slightly far off that. I'm almost getting there, but I have colleagues who have been there and have surpassed that. um, how that is possible. And I love that we are talking about people today. And with people comes relationships. And I believe for all of us in here, we know pretty well that relationships are the ones that build those connections that make people stay together longer. So at SNS, in as much as many other things matter, people matter the most, the very, very most. And why that is so is because, as someone, I think it was Angela said, people will move or define how things go, or how everything else goes. Um, so yeah, at Spinners, we operate or do our things from a family focus point of view. We value everyone who walks in here. We value everyone who seeks to engage with us, be it on employment, but I'll stick to employment now because that is what the topic is. And once somebody comes in, the reception, the relationships, the hand holding, the guidance, and ultimately, the growth is what keeps people here. And we are excited. We're happy
Yeah.
to be here for
I
long.
I mean, if someone's going to be in one place for 3 decades plus, that says a lot, and they're still excited and they're still giving their best value. I know. In the question I asked earlier, you said you're 60% people and then performance. Now you're responsible for people, and ultimately you're responsible for the performance as the head, like head of, like the one in charge of HR for spinners, and spinners has been around for quite a while as well.
Yes,
Last month you engaged us as Craftwise for
yes.
a 2 week boot camp. It was in person for your mid-level managers. And would you share what kind of intervention you were looking for, and perhaps why you reached out to Craftwise?
Oh, yeah, sure. Maybe I can, yeah, so let me start with what we were looking for. And as you said, I love the way you have described your approach to training or to learning. And yes, basically, if I were to sum it up, it would be those 3 things are the ones we were looking for. Because looking across, we all know that there are uncountable service providers in the field of training, in the field of learning and development. But our experience, yes, and we've been here long, has been that it gets for a majority of service providers, it gets to that point of we've done this for long, so it has become a routine. So they kind of have an of what I would call off the shelf kind of content and engagement. So what that means is that they feel, this is my opinion about them, they feel that we've done this for long, so we are on top of our game, and this is what Esther or Sam or someone else would need. So what has happened is over time, we lose the touch of authenticating or making the learning authentic to the need that they are addressing. And therefore, for that reason, we felt like let's search, let's look around, let us take our time to get to see, are we able to get someone who will make our learning customized, bespoke, or authentic to SNS. Let us look for someone who will speak to us, not at us, and sail through our journey and
Like that.
help us get to that space that we want to be. So the engagement. is something that we really were looking out for. How are we engaging? What are the approaches, and what is the medium or mode they're using? And then yeah, it brings about the practice. Yes, we will go through the theory, we will go through the ropes, but then how do we put that into practice? So in a nutshell, it's those three things that
Yeah.
it has to resonate with us. Uh, it has to apply in terms of how we engage or the service provider engages with us, and then it's got to be practical, meaning we need to be to see results after going through the ropes. I
Yeah. I
hope
like
that
that.
answers.
Yeah. Yes, I also like the phrase you used, someone to talk to us and not at at us.
Yes, yes.
So it was a whole 2 week intervention. It was in
Mhm,
person. Um, I'm curious. So let's fast forward to the other side of things. What
mhm.
kind of changes did you see?
The changes we see are tremendous, and this is now speaking to the side of performance. I know we are looking at both the sides today,
Yeah.
um, because the results have to be seen, and how the results are seen will be through the throughput or the output. And I would say that maybe about 80% of the people who went through that program have or has 80% has, as of today, applied about an average of 3 tools of the many tools that we learned throughout the 2 weeks. And that is to say that the understanding was there, uh, I mean, like retention of the content. Like we are not going to go into this and tick a box or we went through this training. So if we see the tools being applied, it means then the yields are coming through. So, and again, going back to whether it's people or performance, if the people are right, performance, we will not need to ask a question. Performance will be an obvious or come through by default. So yes, 80% are utilizing or practicing about 3 tools on average of the many tools that we learned about.
Yeah, that's very interesting. You bring up the idea of tools. I mean, so for someone who is here and they are wondering, okay, what tools are these? What I know they are mid-level managers, and I know you told in the earlier conversation we had, you told the story of how when someone, I think it's when someone brings you a challenge or when you're on the phone with them, you refer them to the tool. Like, did we cover a tool on this? Have you used it? Did you tell that story?
Okay, oh yeah,
Return on investment. You're like, no, 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 you use the tools.
no, it might sound technical. Yeah, I agree if I just say the tools. But now looking back to what challenges were we facing? What did we want to address? We had an issue with execution. Our execution speed and impact was, I mean, we had issues with the speed and impact. Um, we wanted to address the issue of empowerment. And this is not empowerment just a blanket one, but looking at the mid-level, mid-leadership, we wanted to have this team come up or step up and be able to make decisions. So we were kind of devolving decision making from the very top level, which we call here SLT, to at the mid-level. And what that was going to drive is diversity in terms of ideas and speed in terms of we have many points, decision-making points, where then it means execution happens without delays or without bottlenecks. So when I mentioned the tools, it would be like if there it is an issue of collaboration, maybe we have a number of people or team members needing to come together or to know about something, rather than wait for the top leadership to make the decisions, we will have that team um, come together, and then with specific need for them to be in that space. For example, if we want to who is in there that needs to make the decision, who is responsible for what, who needs only to be informed. Because again, in as much as we are devolving decision making, it's not to mean that the senior leadership is not in the picture. It has to be in the picture, and then probably for information only. So an example of the tools would be the RASI space, where we need to know who is where, and are we all informed or in the picture of what we are driving. So yeah, I would say that is an example I would give.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
every
So there's
area, Sam, each area of need was addressed that way. And when I say the tool, maybe for the purpose of the larger team, it means
yeah.
we come up with not a hammer, not a not something that is super science or rocket science, but some way, a method, could be an Excel sheet, could be just something put together to help somebody address or attend to the situation at hand. So
Mm.
for each one of those needs that we had a solution to that. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I love how you remind your team about the tools that you got and you're keen to see them put to action. So thank you for that. I'm curious. I want to ask about Spinners because you're such a massive organization.
Mm-hmm.
How do you typically prepare when people are crossing, especially into middle management? What we see a lot of the time is that because someone has been maybe performing at their level for a while, they
Mm-hmm.
are crossed into mid-level management, they are promoted into that position and so on, but they struggle to deal with the people challenges, but also leading teams. How do you navigate that? How do you train your mid-level managers, especially before or maybe just after promoting them?
Um, I think it's clear then the reason why we bring, or in this case, specific case, we brought Craftwise on board, because we need an intervention. What there is about people is that unless a milestone happens or something extraordinary happens to mark a shift or a change or a transition, then we risk being in the same space. We risk not maybe acknowledging the magnitude of the expectation in the new space. So for leadership, and in this case, mid leadership, we will make sure that we bring in a program like we did with Craftwise to take the team through the basics, and also um, to fine tune them to the fact that now we've stopped being in this space, not because it is a bad space, but we have outgrown it. We are also leaving it for some other team. We are in this space where responsibilities have changed. Like in the case we had in the program we had, it is encouraging the boldness to make decisions. It is bringing the person into that space of the autonomy of being responsible, making decisions, and being accountable for them, which is in a way a space that many people, especially when they're stepping into that space for the first time, would feel like I am not comfortable, because probably I was in a better place where I was not answerable or accountable to that large extent. So we bring in programs like this and we take them through that, and now keep emphasizing on, your role has changed. This is your new role. Clarity on that role, clarity on what are the deliverables for that role, and clarity on the KPIs to drive. And now the beauty of it is that we also remind them that in this space, you're also responsible for the team that is stepping up after you. So leadership starts right there and then. So and that might be a comfortable space because that is a team they may know. But in the long run, they are able to manage both spaces. But I would say this is where we look for the right service provider. And maybe I would say kudos to Craftwise because for this team, you would probably, I know you asked me a question about the changes we are experiencing. One of them is that now we have had a whole set of decisions that we have brought down to that level. And yes, it is starting from typically tomorrow, the 1st of August, some reporting space is being taken up by that team. So it's very
Wow.
practical. Yes.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, well, I mean, we to think that a whole layer of decision making can be handed down because now you feel it must require a lot of confidence within the senior leadership team to say this can be handed down so that we can focus on more strategic approaches. So kudos to you for
Exactly.
doing the right thing by your team, and thank you for taking care of the people that you have. Because I know if you are not taking care of the people, like I think Angela was one who said, if we don't take care of the people, the performance will definitely suffer. So
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah,
Esther, I
true.
want to ask you, do you have any parting shots? Like if someone is right in the middle of their struggle with the talent and trying to figure out leadership in their team, what would you say to them before we finish?
I think what I would say to them without bias is that there is hope. All is not lost. It's good. Resilience is something we call to play as such situations. And why do I talk about resilience? It's because we need to give each one of the people an opportunity. And giving them an opportunity means taking them through the right process to see to it that you're not giving up on them soon. And because we also were given chances and opportunities, and that opportunity looks like space to learn, space to fail, space to fall and stand up, and at least take them through that process and be sure that we've not left out anything untouched as far as developing them is concerned. So probably why I said without bias is I think eyes closed, I would recommend them to Craftwise. And it's because with Craftwise, I've got tangible evidence, I've got tangible joy. It's very, very alive, and I can see the results within a month. That's a short while.
Amazing. Well, thank you. Esther, thank you so much for sharing your experience. And this is fresh. I know this was from last month, and we're also very happy that you could see such great results in just a period of a month. So thank you so much and for sharing your story. Those who are listening, if you want to reach out to Esther, I'm just going to put her link in the chat right here. So there's a link there that says Esther Mucheru on LinkedIn. You can reach out directly. She's passionate about people. She's passionate about performance, and she's a busy lady. We're so glad she could give us a little bit of her time to share her experience having worked with us at Craftwise Academy. Thank you, Esther.
Thank you so much, and nice evening to you all.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Okay. So at Craftwise, we like to think of simulations, and I want to take you through just one quick one. Okay. So let's call this the manager's dilemma. I want you to think of, and this is a good thing. So think of the person on your team or within your organization who you say, man, this person is amazing. They do a great job, especially if they're on your team. Like, I want you to think of a top player on your team. So let's give them some flowers, okay? Just some public affirmation here. So I want you to put their name in the chat. So someone who does such a great job that you appreciate that on your team, you know, that a person, yeah, put their name in the chat. Put their name in the chat. You don't have to put their job title, but put their at least first name in the chat. So if they said, who is like a key player on your team right now, who you'd like, man, this person is amazing. They really make work easy for us. Type the name in the chat. I'm curious to see who you're thinking about. Again. Aha. So yes, our community manager. Thank you, Mutinda. Who are you? Who comes to mind? So maybe it's a John, maybe it's a Tom, maybe it's a Sam, maybe it's a Gibbs. I'm curious. Just I want you to think about them and put their name in the chat. First name only. Okay, so for Timothy, it's Francis. Okay, a key part of the team. Very good. Mutinda, it's Ivy. Okay, Robert, Felix. I like that you paused to think about it. I was like, wait, can they hear me? Yes, they can. Felix. Who else? Who is it for you? Who is it for you? Yeah, Glory, for you, who is it? Iman, Jane, who is on your team who you're like, yeah, this person is really critical for the team? I'll take two more names. Let's see where we are. Iman says Francis. Okay, Timothy and Iman said Francis. I wonder if you're in the same team. Oh, unless you're referring to Francis, who is already on the call. That should be interesting. One more name. Give me one more name. One more name. Peter, Patrick, Nancy, who is it for you? Yes, Iman. Victoria, Kimaru. So as that name comes through now, I want you to think of that person. Now imagine they walk up to you and you are the manager, and then they say, you know what? Okay, Peter said Nixon. So Peter, imagine if Nixon, right? Peter, are you okay to unmute your mic? I would like to ask you one question. Is that all right?
Yes, that's okay.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Peter, imagine, could you describe a little bit of what Nixon does?
I think Nixon is a very hard-working person and he's very good at IT. So in cases of we have issues with IT, he's able to step in and he's able to sort us out.
Okay, okay, so he's the go-to guy. Okay,
Yeah.
so Peter, imagine, God forbid, but imagine if tomorrow Nixon walks up to you and he says, you know what, Peter, I'm leaving the organization. I'm done. What would your response be?
Um,
Oh, Peter, I think you muted your mic while speaking.
I'm saying
Yeah.
I'll be concerned and I'll be like, what is the issue that is making you to go? Is it something that we can be able to discuss and talk? So the things that I'll
Okay.
talk to him. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Let me ask Robert the same question. Robert, imagine if Felix comes up to you tomorrow and says, "No, I'm done. I'm leaving. I'm maybe, I'm not feeling seen. I'm not feeling heard. My ideas, this and that. I've tried this and that, and it's not working. I'm going to go try find something else." Robert, how would you respond to that? Okay. Robert says I will interview him and understand why he is leaving. Okay, good. I'll ask one more person. Let me see. Which name did we come to? Timothy, if Francis walked up to you and had the same reaction, what would you? Okay, Robert says I would see if we can have a proposition to make him stay. Like whatever it takes, make the guy stay. Okay. Timothy, what happens if Francis, yeah.
It would be disappointing.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. That's the first reaction. I think the second reaction would be to understand the reasons. But third would be important to understand who he has identified within his team who could be able to cover the base if he's leaving immediately, that is.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Thank you. Thank you very
much.
much.
That was clear.
Yes, it was very clear. So this challenge is now the scenario I've given is that the person comes up to you and actually says they're leaving. What often happens actually, seems to be that people leave more silently, especially our top performers. You just wake up one morning and all of a sudden there's nothing you can say to the guy that can make him stay, right? Have you had that scenario before? Hopefully not, but most of us, I would imagine, have. And then you're stuck wondering, like, what do we do? How can we replace this person? There's costs in replacing the person. There's the awkwardness of we have all this work, who's going to do it? But they leave. And like you said, it's right to find out what is the reason why our good people, our great people, the ones who we are thinking of in this conversation, why would they come to a point of leaving? Maybe it's happened to you before and you are the one who was like, no, I can't do this anymore, I'm leaving. What we find, and I think you've had it said before, people don't leave bad jobs. Most of the time they leave managers who are not yet ready, perhaps, okay, whose management skills are not yet at par, okay? And there's a huge cost for management, right? You would say it's actually the most expensive line on your budget. So that attrition rate, what does that actually mean? It's not just a figure. It affects operations, it can affect the bottom line. The whole transition can be very difficult already in a time when there's so much happening within an organization. All of a sudden, things can move from significantly difficult to significantly worse. Okay, so there's a quote: if you think great managers are expensive, try bad ones. The cost of having a poor manager is not a good thing that anyone wants to carry. All right. So why does this whole conversation matter when it comes to training managers to be able to manage and lead the people well, but also still get results? Because it's also not just about people. We need to get the tasks done. We need to get the results from bottom line to everything else. Why this matters, though, a few points to think through is promotion does not necessarily translate into preparation. And that's the question I was asking Esther. When we promote people, typically it's because they've been doing their part well. But what happens when you promote someone to a level where they're not quite ready? And if you're going to do that, how do you prepare them to get ready? So managers caught between do more pressure and people fast. So now they have not been trained to handle either well, but now we have the pressure of putting both things and say, well, you need to be able to do more, but also prioritize the people and make sure things happen. And they sometimes crumble under that pressure. Okay. So rising teams, but weak leadership pipelines. We promoted like an HR director who once said, we promoted for output because we need more done, but they couldn't manage the people. And that then affects performance behind the scenes. And it's quite interesting there. At Craftwise, our philosophy is it doesn't have to be either or. It's not either people or performance. It's both and more. So people practice and execution systems. One, practical and African contextual situations, and also evidence-based training. So the leader that you have, the manager that you have, can go so that they can go through this training, and in a short while, you should be able to see results. And that's why we're really happy to see that same result happen for spinners and spinners. All right. Now, I want to just share with you, we mentioned the tool before we get to what this program that we are going to be speaking to you about looks like. We want to share one tool. Okay. So the tool is called the SCARF Leadership Framework. And the whole idea here is there's key aspects of work that we have to think through when it comes to leading people. Now, I'll share some information, and I wonder if you resonate with it or you find it strange, right? One, this tool is to help build trust and the capacity to get more results. And an acronym for it was SCARF, okay? Especially as we want to move forward. Did you know that when someone, for instance, it's not monetary, right? Did you know that when it comes to someone's, call it social status in the workspace, a drop in social status is equivalent. So this is based on research and so on, right? But a drop in their social status actually lights up the same side of the brain as when they feel physical pain. I thought that was quite strange and interesting, right? And then an increase in status feels about the same as an increase in like a money raise, financial raise. So the same side lights up. And then studies indicate that the bigger response towards motivation is actually in an increase in status. And that is even more powerful than when it comes to money. Now let's make it more practical. When do you feel, and maybe you can put it in the chat if you see where this is going, in our day-to-day scenarios, right? When do you feel someone's status in their work is most threatened? Okay. Think through what moment in our day-to-day work can create a scenario where someone's work status may feel threatened. Can you guess? I'll give you a moment to think through in the chat. Any guesses? Okay, well then you might find it quite interesting. It's especially in scenarios where we are giving them feedback. Okay, when we're giving them feedback, one-on-one, one-to-group, often those scenarios signal defensiveness. So when they are being told what they may not be doing so well, all of a sudden that can be, if not done well, it can signal a certain level of pressure and the need to defend their status. Okay, and we already talked about how that may affect them. So how do you get people, right? Let's see what we have. Aha, Angela, restructuring. Yes, that's another one when it comes to restructuring or even the hint of restructuring. Okay, I have some friends who just went through that recently. It just all of a sudden moves from a high corporate, not even necessarily high, but all of a sudden to come down like this just feels like devastating, right? And in the workspace, what we're learning here is how do you take care of people and their status, right? So that you don't unnecessarily drop it if we don't need to be getting into that, right? How do you take care of them? So in this case, how do you get people to give themselves feedback, honest feedback, so that it does not necessarily feel like a drop in their status, right? There's a whole technical aspect of it. The second aspect of the SCARF acronym is C, so it's certainty. Here it's the question of ambiguity and how the brain works with ambiguity. The brain does not want ambiguity. The moment I say B-X, immediately fill in the gap. So it's, what's the word? If it's B-X, what's the word I'm thinking of? Right? If you're following and you can hear me. Yes, Mutinda, thank you so much. So it's box. The brain wants to fill in the gap. So the moment I should give you a tricky one though. So how about this one? Let me give you a tricky one. If it's dash WL, what word is that? It's dash. Okay. But it could be another word, guys. It could be another word. It could be another word, right? Is there another word that this could be? Don't go to ChatGPT right now. Stay with me. It could be another word. Anyone? I'll tell you a word I didn't. Yes, Matinda, I did not know that word until my mature years. I'm like, what? That's an owl, and it's the tool that is used for like threading through leather or things like that. It's like it's a special needle of sorts. But most of us, if you're like me, I would put owl because that's what I know. So we fill the gap in with what we know. So if I don't know the word owl, that with an A, that doesn't come quickly to mind. Now imagine in our leadership journey, you're leading a team, and then you ask them, I want you to get the team together and on Monday, present to us 7 WLs. Like, are we going to bring you O's or owls? Chances are we'll bring you O's. But then you can't then change in the meeting and say, no, I meant the other one. That's not how it works. But that's the thing about ambiguity. If we leave it ambiguous, then things are not going to happen. Okay? And the moment, like you talked about restructure, the moment you say, I'll clarify this later, what does that mean? I will let you know, okay, what does that mean? Pressure. It's quite different when you say, the specific things you're looking for, and when, for instance, if it's clarifying, I'll clarify Monday at 8. All of a sudden, we can tentatively rest and say, okay, so if it's a pressure situation, we'll get the answer at that time. So we're not worried too much about it. Right. So that's a quick illustration for certainty. The other thing that's really important to us as leaders is to think through the idea of autonomy. So if there's no autonomy, we are stressed. Autonomy is just agency in what we're doing. And okay, if the people you're leading like to have a sense of a bit of control. I may not be able to control what tasks I'm doing and all that, but at least I should have some control about how at least one task gets done. The less control adults have, the more jittery they can get because they want to have some sense of, mind input into the thing. And autonomy equals control or at least influence. People need to feel they have some say in the matter, even if it's at a small level. Just moving quickly a bit though is the R, it's relatedness. So when we meet new people, most of us, when we meet new people, it's whether party, whether church, whether it can be, there's some tension around meeting new people for most people. Okay, it can signal, call it a threat, some level of discomfort, right? And now if you introduce in the same space, if you introduce one or two people and then all of a sudden, it's not that I don't know the whole crowd, at least I know two people, then all of a sudden it lowers the stress and lowers the guard. And now, how do you do that in the workplace? And that's why it makes a great case for champions, for those who have been around the organization for a while, onboarding processes, all that factors in. The other one, the last one, is fairness. When we lead poorly, we tend to signal, no, you don't need to know, okay? And, what do we say? We keep everything quite secret, and we say it's on a need-to-know basis, and you don't need to know. And for a while, people can say, okay, fine. But after a while, it's going to start itching because it just feels like we don't know how decisions are made here. What's the criteria for fairness? And all that can signal self-preservation, and then you're not getting the best out of your teams. So how do you lead with this in mind? Here's a scenario, though, that I want to give you before, just to make sure that we've understood what this concept looks like, right? Before we go, which one would you say of these 5 connects with you the most personally? So number 1 is, which of these would you say, yeah, that's actually important for me? Which one would you say is the most important for you personally? And which do you think you unknowingly may be overlooking in your leadership? But for now, I'll just ask you to answer question 1. Which of these 5 key elements resonate with you strongest? So for Gibbs, it's important for him to have some sense of control about what he does. For Angela, it's fairness. We can't just be, people are being treated seemingly differently. That doesn't work for me. I need to know that we're all at the same table, okay? Not some other secret table. Ongui says autonomy, okay? Alan wants fairness, okay? Good. All right, cool. So my scenario, the other one, you don't have to type in the, see, Francis has 2, certainty and relatedness. Okay, good. So the second one, you don't have to answer in the chat. I will leave you to reflect on. It's a personal one that I don't want to have you to divulge if you don't need to. Which of these do you think you are unknowingly overlooking in how you lead your team? All right. Again, just something to think about and take a note. This is a tool. This is an example of a tool that can help you frame this conversation and think through. If you're going to, it can affect how you onboard your people. It can affect how you do your reviews. It can affect how you do your coaching sessions. If you do coaching sessions, it can affect how you communicate, even when it's difficult communication. But let me just test your learning a little bit. There's a whole model about it, and you can find this. Let me just go straight to the simulation that I want to check with you. So the SCAP simulation, here's a crisis for us. Your team is presenting a pitch tomorrow. Tensions are high. During a prep meeting, one team member, Brian, publicly criticizes a colleague's slides. The colleague, Zainab, shuts down and doesn't speak again. Another team member, Daniel, tries to step in, but is ignored. You, my friend, are leading the meeting. So we're going to have a breakout discussion. What I want you to think through is identify what SCAF domains are being threatened. Okay. And if you are in this meeting, what are your next 3 moves that you're going to take? Okay. So I'm going to put you out in breakouts and you're going to have, let's see what we'll have. So this is a quick fire discussion. You're going to have about 8 minutes. Okay. I'm going to give you 8 minutes. And when we come back, we'll debrief, right? Let me just give me a second for this. I'm going to make it 9. Here we go. You should be able to find your breakout rooms directly. And I'll share the screen here. Catherine, can you hear me?
Hey, Sam.
Yes, yes. Because we all have a sense. Sorry, I forgot to press record. But imagine all the pressure that comes with the like a pitch tomorrow. But now imagine if you take everything that Iman you've given us and you forecast for your team. Okay, guys, over the next 2 weeks, it's going to be a high stress period. I just want to remind you that we're on the same team, around relatedness. And this is the goal, which someone also shared. This is why we're doing this. And even as we go into it, I want us to remember that we're on the same team. Even knowing that puts the SCAF simulation ahead of any challenges you may have, so that when we're getting into high pressure zone, everyone is like, oh, same team, same team. So let's lower our voices and see each other and not just, shout and things like that. So quite interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, so without any further ado, we're going towards the next very critical part of our session today. We'll be finishing in the next maybe 25 or 20 minutes. But I want to turn it over to Mr. Mwawura, who is head of learning and design at Craftwise Academy, and is going to be sharing with us a little bit about the flow for the program that is that you're going to be learning about. Another offering of Craftwise Academy that does such simulations, because remember, I was telling you, we're priding ourselves in making sure it's practical learning. If someone is in a managerial situation, they know they need to make decisions, help them make decisions. If they are going to be in certain situations, track them, simulate them so that they can rehearse performance ahead of time. So Gibbs, handing over to you, and then at the end of Gibbs's presentation, we'll land the plane for our session today. Gibbs, over to you.
All right. Please let me share my screen. Thank you. Let me hear from one person if you can see what is on my screen.
Yes, I can. I can see you as well. Very good.
Okay, wonderful. As mentioned, my name is Gibbs, head learning and design at Craftwise. So some years back, I had just joined an organization and I was working this global organization with operations across Africa and other parts of the world, but I was based in Nairobi and I had just joined the organization. It was my first month and I was in a training role, around junior to mid-level training role. And so I'd only been there for my first month, so my onboarding period was not yet done. Then my manager reaches out and lets me know that the board of directors and a number of investors are coming into the country. They want to visit some of the different offices across the continent, and they want to meet different team members and have dinner with different team members. Remember, it's month 1, right? And so my manager informs me that my name has been proposed. They also want someone from the training learning department, and it was a learning organization, an EdTech organization. And so someone who can have dinner with the board and meet the board and other people there, the CEO, my manager as well, and so on. And of course, I panicked, but I leaned into the challenge. I had no option. And so I'm sitting at dinner at this restaurant. It's around the 4th week of my first month in this organization. On my left side is one of our board members and investors. If I remember correctly, she was a head at the Facebook Foundation, the Chan Zuckerberg Foundation. In front of me is somebody else similar, another gentleman, I remember him. But to my right was this American gentleman, and who was one of our very early investors of that organization and one of the board members. So I figured I'm a friendly guy. I can talk to people, so I'm having conversations here and there. And I'm wondering, what do you discuss with? And this was very many years back, so I'm a bit younger. So I'm sort of like, what do you discuss with board members, investors? But just having those conversations. And so this gentleman to my left, at some point, he starts really asking me questions, pushing, very, aggressive, really challenging me, asking me questions that are challenging me to think beyond what I know, back to back, rapid fire, your worst fears about being in such a situation. And it got to a point where I just froze. And he's challenging me, asking me about this, asking me about that. What do you think is the overall strategy for learning and training? How does that link? And I just froze. And when I froze, he looked at me calmly and he said, "Okay, nice talking to you." And he turned around and ignored me for the rest of the evening. Later, when I had a chance to now, leave the table and find my manager, I went up to him and I apologized. My manager also is an American guy. And I apologized. I'm like, I think I've messed up. I didn't know, am I fired? Have I failed? Have I lost the organization funding? Have I messed up with this board member? What have I done? I went and I apologized. And the first thing my manager did is that he laughed. He really laughed. And then he apologized to me. And he said, "I'm so sorry, Gibbs. That's how that guy is. He's this really high level, investor, board member, businessman, and he just has no time. He's just like that, right? In Swahili would say, anakwanga hivo. That's just the way he is. And don't you worry about it." And so that calmed me down. Later on, I had a chance to reflect. And quite some months down the line, I sat with my manager and asked my manager, what would I do different in such scenarios? As I progress in my career, as I'm engaging with high-level executives within the organization and outside with our partners, with our funders, the investors, our board members, what would I do different? And so my manager began to talk me through. Here are tips, here are tricks, here are the principles, here's how you'd go about that. And then he also challenged me. I'll give you opportunities to get back in there, to practice, to do it again. Are you willing? Are you willing to be embarrassed again? Are you willing to drown again and to get feedback and to loop until you grow? And I said yes, and I regretted it, and then I didn't regret it as I grew and became very comfortable in that space. The point of that story is just to essentially say, this is how learning happens. In leadership, in growing our leadership and our management skills, that is how learning happens. That is the way that we learn, through practice, through feedback, through digging into what was that scenario, what skill set is needed, through then digging deep into understanding that skill set, the frameworks around it, and then getting a chance to practice again. And that is how we grow. And that, in a nutshell, is how we build our programs at Craftwise. That is the Skyline Managers Program, and that's how we think when we think about adult learning and we think about leadership development. We have a bias towards action. Hands down, that's the focus. A bias towards what we are learning in this session, what we are addressing and unpacking in a specific session, whether it's online or in person. How does that translate to the specific, to the real life context? How do you put that to work on Monday? And so for us, what is critical is this element of learning by doing. The being able to practice something, to think about it, to see how you feel, whether it comes to any area of leadership, communication, team management, conflict resolution, leadership agility and adaptability. How do you practice that? Learn by doing, and then translate that into real action, learning for action in your real context. What would that look like in your organization? And then also linking that with learning from peers and the experiences of others and the experiences of experts who've actually seen what has worked and what the research says about what has worked. And then learning beyond the classroom, mapping out an action plan and mapping out a capstone for how do I take this back to my workplace on Monday and begin to see immediate results, similar to what Esther was talking about at the beginning. And that is how we design That's the bias that we have for how we design and how we deliver learning in a way that is practical, that has a bias towards action immediately, and that focuses on key skills needed for leadership, the ability to communicate clearly, getting right into it. What are the scenarios in which communication is needed? What are the ways that we lean towards communicating that are not ideal? How do we, what does the research show and what does the market show in terms of how to communicate well? The ability to think critically about yourself, emotional intelligence, think critically about challenges and problems, the ability to create accountability, to delegate, the ability to manage performance, the ability to build relationships upwards, to build relationships with your peers across departments. Those are the skill sets that are needed. And the environment of how to learn that is an experiential fashion, is with a bias towards action. And that is the core of how we do our how we run this learning program. We measure our learning program by what percentage of it was lecture style. And any program or any session that leans more than 20 to 30% lecture style always is regarded as below par, and we shift that more towards how do we get this tool, how do we get this principle to be deeply understood by the participants, by the learners, by the managers and the leaders here, and to be owned by them in terms of from the word go, you're like, I walked in here with a problem and I can see how this solves my problem. In the area of people development, in the area of change, in the area of how to be an inspirational leader. Even if you're an introvert, someone who communicates calmly, such as myself, someone who's not very extroverted and outgoing, but how do you do that? How do you still inspire with your own voice? And that's our focus at Craftwise, and that's our focus through this program. And so we really believe strongly in the heart of experiential learning through your past experiences, bringing that in, and then learning through the new experiences within the context of the classroom or the workshop, being able to reflect critically, and that's important, to reflect in terms of this is why this would not work for me. How do I adapt this that it works for me? This is why I'm finding a challenge. This is why I'm having a strong emotional response to being able to apply this in my workplace. Being able to reflect deeply and then being able to think through new frameworks, new principles, and to think through what might that then look like for my Monday? What might that look like for my context? And then mapping out how to act that, how to apply that to work and looping that around. That is how we learn. That is how we build that muscle of leadership in the real world. And so the Skyline Leaders program is designed with that foundation and is designed with that focus. And so we're really concerned about strategy and strategic impact and building the skills that we put together translate to a strategic leader at whatever level it may be. A focus on people management at an advanced level, at a deep level, in terms of going beyond just ticking boxes of performance to coaching and mentoring leaders who have ownership and mentoring teams that have ownership to change. How to change is constant. The only constant that we have now is change. That is the only thing that is constant, is change. Change must happen in the current business environment. And so a leader is someone who is comfortable in change in our modern context. Change is not a niche subject when it comes to leadership in this current global context. And then innovation. Leaders today have to constantly be adapting. I remember when we started talking about AI just a few years back, and it initially started like a joke. It was always the very creative person in the organization bringing that up. Then eventually, in different organizations, the CEO comes in and says, how do we use AI to uplift this organization? Because we're seeing our competitors doing it. And so that's how we think, with an outcome of leaders who are equipped to handle complex challenges and drive organizational transformation. And so our program is structured in 4 phases. And so the first phase looks at the core leadership skills, starting with that strong foundation, and then linking that with strategy, how to then apply that with your own unique personality in a strategy and in your own domain, in your own organization, in your own industry, in a way that is strategic and drives execution. And then mapping that then to team leadership, right? Those key skills that have been gained internally and gained in terms of how to run your department, how do you replicate that with your team? And then putting that together to translate to leadership impact. How does this then link to impact on a quarterly basis, where it can be seen that the impact, the level at which you are delivering and the level at which your teams are delivering is different from what it was 3 months before. And so that's how we structure the program, and we sort of cover that in that scaffolded fashion. And we really focused on seeing certain key results, seeing improvement, significant measurable improvement in strategic decision-making skills for all managers across all levels. And you heard what Esther mentioned around the certain decisions that were at a certain level that were brought down to the lower level of managers. Confidence in managers in terms of how they lead teams. Improve communication, where communicating in a certain way becomes standard across the organization and across managers. Seeing improvements that are tangible, where essentially when you would ask an individual who interacts with those managers, whether it's on the client end or other departments, what do you think of this team? They actually can give scenarios. I noticed that in the last quarter, I noticed in the last meeting, I noticed this team did this. That was quite interesting. That was quite commendable. And direct impact on performance, where it can be measured. You see that translate in terms of sales. You see that translate in terms of retention. And that is the focus. That's how we designed this program, and we work backwards from what we want the market impact to look like into what the experience through the Skyline program is that links to that. And as mentioned, it was not just from Esther, but we have quite a number of different organizations that have really gone through the experience and have given us strong feedback on what they saw really has been transformative. And I won't read through this, but essentially what most of them were talking about was that element of tangible results. And we've seen tangible, measurable results. And the others who spoke of, we also saw a program that was very practical, very experiential, very enjoyable for our managers. And yet that linked to very tangible and measurable results. And that's consistent with what we've been getting, and that's our North Star. That's essentially what we look at to measure the value of our offerings. And so that's it in a nutshell. I want to hand over back to Sam just to land this plane.
Very good. Thank you so much for sharing there. Yeah, so we're in the last minutes of our session together, but what we wanted to do in these minutes, and I want to say thank you so much, Gibbs, for clarifying what it is behind the scenes. What does this look like? What's our philosophy as Craftwise, and what are we trying to solve for? So this is the Skyline Managers Program. I'll just come down to the nitty-gritty of what you want to know in terms of information when it comes to the Skyline Managers Program. It's an 8-week program. So the cohort is kicking off 3rd September. And if you want some early bird 10% discount, there's a deadline for that. It will be 12th of August. If there's a group bonus, if you nominate 5 or more participants, you can enjoy the 10% as well. So encouraging you to secure your spot, grow your influence, and multiply your opportunities. But what I want to do more specifically now is to just check with you on all the information that you've received and get some feedback from you and ask, hey, are you ready to fly? So this is the Skyline Leadership Program. There's a poll I've just launched, and I'll kindly ask your attention to it. Checking with you in terms of how excited would you be to start this journey? Very excited? Are you curious or a bit unsure, still unsure? Would you like to have one of our team follow up with you? If any of this has been something that rings a bell or seems interesting, or something that makes you go, okay, I think I have something that I need to solve for within my organization, and I may need that support. Or are you considering this training for yourself? Is it for yourself or for a team? Okay, that helps us to figure out if you need customization. We have worked with organizations who wanted something very specific, for instance, the spinners and spinners, where we can tailor that to your liking as well. So your response to the poll here would give us the indication on how to follow up for next steps. But at least what I wanted to share with you, even as you respond to this poll, is key dates to know is the 3rd September is when the cohort kicks off. And then 12th August is when we have the deadline for the early bird tickets. Again, this may be for you as an individual in terms of your personal development on your leadership journey, but also it could be for your team, for your department, or for a group that you're working with. So your feedback is really helpful for this. All right. We're at about 60% in terms of feedback. And again, if you indicate that you'd like us to follow up with you, okay, then we'll definitely go ahead and do that. Let's see where we are. We're like 70%. And again, this is the scenario for if you have any questions, we can follow up with you and just check if there's any spots that need clarification, we can have that. And let's just check where we are. I see quite a number of us are running this as an individual effort. So personal development, very good, personal development. And a few of us are also thinking in terms of building our teams. So thank you for that. Very good. All right, I'm going to give, let me see, just 2 more minutes. No, not 2 more minutes, just maybe 1 more minute. I think 1 more minute. Check with you. I see it's split across. Okay, let me see. Many of us are open to learning. Many of us are ready to dive in. Let me just check where we are. I think we have about 2 or 3, maybe 30 seconds now. 30 seconds, and I'll finish off here. Now, for those who have already submitted your response on this chat, I also want to let you know if you would like to reach out, I want to share with you a contact, so someone you can reach out to. There's an email here, so harold@craftwiseacademy.com. There's also a number there. It says Harold Angila, he's our head of training. If you want to reach out, please reach out. There's a number. There's also our website if you want to find out a bit more about Craftwise Academy and what we do, kind of work we do, and how we can support you, because we're keen to find out how we can tailor and get you the support that you need. And this session was to share a bit of learning, but also share with you a bit of who we are, what we do, and what potential partnerships can establish from there. All right. I think I'm going to count it down from 10. We've been keen to stay within our time frame, and I think we're doing well there. So we should be done in just a second there. All right. For those who are wondering about cost, it is 50K. Yes, thank you so much. I forgot to mention that. All right. It's 50K Kenyan shillings. But if you indicated that you'd like us to follow up with you, we can definitely have that fuller conversation and also talk through what that would look like for you, for those of you here who represent entire departments and teams and so on. So sometimes we get people who are here for their personal growth, and then others who want to, they're curious, much like Esther was, to say, I know there's many players, but I'm curious to see what this new player has and how they can focus on the team that I have. All right, so 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So we've gotten 81% of us response. That's beautiful. Thank you so much. So based on your responses, we will be keen to follow up. All right, we'll be keen to follow up with you. And for those who want to stay plugged into what we're doing, our website is craftwiseacademy.com. But you'll also see quite a bit about us online. So in terms of LinkedIn, I know we're always sharing some of the work that we're doing with different organizations. So do look out for us. But right now, I do want to say a big, big, big thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your energy. And thank you for your attention. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and invite all of us to be on video. And I just need a smile and a wave so that we can bid each other adieu. If you don't mind, I'd like to see some faces on the screen. This is Gibbs smiling, or what seemed to have been a smile, all lasting for 2 seconds. Hey, man. Hey, Alan. Yes, it's good to.
That's my smile after 8 p.m.
Good to see you here, Nancy, Kimera. Timothy, drive safe. Drive safe for sure. But I want to say a big thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for walking through everything until this moment. I know that we must be ready for the break. So get some rest. And we're wishing you well in all your endeavors, in all the work that you are doing. All right. And we'll connect soon. We'll be keeping you posted on all things to do with Craftwise Academy. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye,
If you have
everyone.
any specific question you want to ask after everyone has left, you can stay behind. We'll stay behind for about 5 or so minutes. If you want to go ahead and do that, you can. You can just stay behind and ask a question, and we'll figure out how to support you.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Kate. Thank you, Kate. Glory or Kate, is there a question you'd like to have responded to? Okay, Kate dropped. Glory, are you there? Okay, and Kat. All right, fantastic. Thank you.
Wow, Mr. Sam.